Stop scrolling. Because what started as a missing Amazon package ended with police lights flashing outside my house, a crowd of neighbors whispering in shock, and one HOA Karen exposed in a way she'll never live down. I wish I was exaggerating. I'm not. If you've ever dealt with package thieves, nosy HOA tyrants, or neighbors who think the rules don't apply to them, watch until the end because the story spirals fast. It began quietly, almost harmlessly. One afternoon, I checked my phone and saw the familiar notification, "Your package has been delivered." I opened my front door, expecting a small cardboard box waiting on the porch. Nothing. I checked the steps, the bushes, even the side gate. Still nothing. I figured it was a delay, maybe the driver scanned it early. That happens, right? The next day, it happened again. Delivered. Empty porch. This time, the package was important supplies I needed for work. Mild irritation turned into suspicion. I reviewed the delivery photo. There it was. My porch. My welcome mat. My door. The box was clearly there when the driver left. Yet somehow, between that moment and mine, it vanished. By the third missing package, denial wasn't an option anymore. Someone was stealing from me. And not randomly. Consistently. Like clockwork. Always during the same afternoon window. Always after the delivery notification. I installed a doorbell camera that night, convinced I'd catch some random thief passing through the neighborhood. What I didn't expect was what the footage revealed the following day. Around 2:17 p.m., a familiar figure entered the frame. Perfect posture. Oversized sunglasses. A tight smile that never reached her eyes. She walked with confidence, like she belonged everywhere she stepped. I recognized her instantly. The HOA president. The woman who fined people for trash cans being out 5 minutes too long. The one who lectured kids for riding bikes on the sidewalk. She glanced left. Then right. Picked up my package. And walked away. I stared at the screen in disbelief, my stomach dropping. This wasn't just theft. This was arrogance. Boldness. The kind that only comes from thinking you're untouchable. And in that moment, I knew something important. Reporting her wouldn't be enough. I needed proof she couldn't explain away. I replayed the footage at least 10 times, hoping I'd see something that made it less real. Maybe I misidentified her. Maybe it was someone who just looked like the HOA president. But every rewind confirmed it. Same haircut. Same stiff walk, same smug confidence. There was no mistake. The woman responsible for enforcing community standards was stealing from my porch in broad daylight. My first instinct was to call the police immediately. But then I pictured how that would go. She'd deny it. Claim it was a misunderstanding. Say she thought the package was hers. As HOA president, she knew everyone, knew the rules, and knew exactly how to talk her way out of trouble. Without undeniable evidence, it would be my word against hers. And I had a feeling she'd done this before. That night, I barely slept. My anger slowly turned into something sharper, calculated. If she thought she was untouchable, I needed to show her she wasn't. Not with confrontation. Not with shouting. But with something she couldn't deny, something that would expose her to everyone she'd spent years intimidating. The idea came to me while scrolling through videos of porch pirates getting caught. Glitter bombs. Dye packs. Traps so simple yet devastatingly effective. And suddenly, I smiled for the first time all day. If she wanted my packages so badly, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I spent the next day planning every detail. Timing mattered. Presentation mattered. And most importantly, it had to look completely normal. I ordered a small lockbox online, one designed to pop open when handled improperly. Inside, I placed a sealed pouch of industrial-grade blue dye, the kind that stains skin and fabric for days. I padded it with fake electronics packaging so it felt valuable. Tempting. Irresistible. I tested the mechanism 3 times. Each test ended the same way, a loud pop and an explosion of blue powder that coated everything nearby. There was no wiping it off. No hiding it. Anyone who triggered it would be marked instantly. Before sealing the box, I hesitated for a moment. Was this too far? Then I remembered the fines she handed out for aesthetic violations. The way she talked down to neighbors. The confidence with which she stole from me. That hesitation disappeared. I placed the box carefully on my porch the next afternoon, right in view of the camera. Then I waited. Every sound made my heart race. Every passing car. Every notification. Around 2:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. Your package has been delivered. I didn't need to look outside. I already knew. The trap was set. At exactly 2:17 p.m., my doorbell camera sent a motion alert. My pulse spiked as I opened the live feed, already knowing who I was about to see. Right on schedule, she appeared at the edge of the frame. HOA Karen. Sunglasses on. Chin lifted. Walking like the sidewalk belonged to her. She didn't hesitate or look around this time. That confidence told me everything. This wasn't her first theft. This was routine. She stepped onto my porch, glanced briefly at the door, and spotted the box. Her lips tightened into a satisfied smile. She bent down, picked it up, and turned to leave just like every other time. Then the box popped. There was a sharp crack, followed by a violent burst of blue dye that exploded upward and outward. It coated her hands, her arms, her blouse, and splashed across her face before she could even react. She screamed and dropped the box, stumbling backward off the porch as blue powder puffed into the air like smoke. I watched in stunned silence as she froze, staring at her stained hands. She tried brushing it off, smearing the dye even more. Panic replaced arrogance in seconds. She yanked off her sunglasses, revealing wide, terrified eyes now streaked with blue. Her white blouse was ruined. Her skirt speckled. Her skin unmistakably marked. She looked around wildly, finally realizing something was wrong. Very wrong. Then she did the worst possible thing. She ran. Blue footprints appeared on the sidewalk as she rushed down the street, leaving a trail that pointed directly toward her house. Neighbors began opening their doors, drawn by the noise. A man across the street stared openly. Someone laughed. A woman gasped. Phones came out almost instantly. I rewound the footage twice just to be sure it was real. There was no denying it now. No misunderstanding. No excuse. The HOA president had been caught red-handed, literally blue-handed, stealing a package that clearly wasn't hers. But the real consequences were only beginning. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a delivery notification. It was a text from a neighbor. Why is the HOA lady covered in blue paint and yelling? Another message followed. Then another. Apparently, she'd made it home and started screaming about a booby-trapped package and illegal harassment. She claimed she'd been attacked. That someone had set her up. And she was demanding justice. That's when I heard sirens in the distance. I didn't panic. I saved the footage. Every angle. Every second. And I smiled. Because for the first time, she wasn't in control of the narrative. The sirens grew louder, echoing down the street until red and blue lights washed over the houses like a warning. 2 police cars pulled up near the HOA president's home, and within minutes, the quiet afternoon had turned into a full-blown spectacle. Neighbors gathered on sidewalks and driveways, pretending not to stare while staring very obviously. I stayed inside, watching everything unfold through my camera feed and the group chat that was suddenly exploding with messages. From what I later learned, she met the officers at her front door, still covered in blue dye. It had stained her hands, her neck, even parts of her hair. She was frantic, talking fast, pointing down the street toward my house. She claimed she'd been attacked by a dangerous trap and that I'd intentionally tried to hurt her. According to her, she was the victim of a targeted act of harassment. The officers listened calmly, then asked the most important question of all. Why were you taking a package from someone else's porch? That's when her story started to unravel. She stammered. Claimed it was a mistake. Said she thought it was delivered to the wrong address. But when asked why she'd taken multiple packages on multiple days, she had no answer. The blue dye made it impossible to deny she'd triggered the device herself. It was all over her. There was no blaming a passerby. No imaginary attacker. One officer came to my door shortly after. I handed over the footage without a word. Every clip showed her approaching confidently, picking up the package, and walking away. The final video showed the dye trap detonating the moment she lifted the box. The officer nodded slowly as he watched, his expression shifting from neutral to unimpressed. Outside, neighbors were now openly talking. Someone mentioned missing packages of their own. Another said they'd seen her carrying boxes before but never questioned it. The whispers turned into accusations, and the crowd grew louder by the minute. When the officers returned to her, the tone had changed. They explained that setting a non-lethal dye trap on your own property wasn't illegal. Stealing packages, however, very much was. Especially repeatedly. Especially while serving as HOA president. She began to cry. Not quietly. Loud, dramatic sobs. She blamed stress. Claimed everyone was against her. But the damage was done. Her authority was gone. Her reputation shattered. And this was only the beginning. Because the HOA board hadn't even been informed yet. By that evening, word had spread through the neighborhood faster than any official announcement ever had. The HOA group chat was a war zone. Screenshots of the blue-stained HOA president circulated alongside blurry phone photos and exaggerated retellings. By the time an emergency HOA meeting was announced for the next night, everyone already knew exactly what it was about. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse, a place normally reserved for dull discussions about lawn height and parking violations. This time, it was packed. Every chair was filled. People stood along the walls. Some neighbors who had never attended a single HOA meeting in years suddenly had perfect attendance. I took a seat near the back, quiet, observant. The air buzzed with tension and barely contained excitement. She walked in 10 minutes late. Gone was the confident posture. Gone were the sunglasses and smug smiles. The blue dye had mostly faded from her skin, but not enough to disappear completely. Faint stains still marked her hands, her collarbone, her hairline. Every whisper in the room followed her as she sat at the front table. The vice president cleared his throat and called the meeting to order. He didn't waste time. We are here to address serious allegations against our HOA president, he said carefully. Including repeated theft of residents' packages. A murmur rippled through the room. She immediately stood up, launching into a speech about harassment, traps, and how she'd been publicly humiliated. She claimed she was framed. That the package was meant for her. That the dye trap was dangerous and unethical. She spoke loudly, emotionally, hoping volume would replace credibility. Then the vice president asked, "Would you like us to review the footage?" Silence. The video played on a projector at the front of the room. One clip turned into several. Different days. Same porch. Same person. Same theft. Gasps filled the room. Someone laughed nervously. Another person whispered, "Oh my God." Then came the dye trap footage. The explosion of blue powder on the big screen ended any remaining doubt. The room erupted. People talked over each other. Accusations flew. Missing packages were suddenly remembered out loud. Neighbors stood up, sharing stories of deliveries that never arrived, all during the same time window. Her face drained of color. The board called for a recess. When they returned, the decision was swift. Effective immediately, she was removed as HOA president pending further investigation. A vote for permanent removal would follow. The authority she'd wielded for years vanished in seconds. She stormed out, humiliated, eyes down, avoiding every stare. As people filtered out, several neighbors stopped to thank me quietly. Others apologized for never questioning her behavior. And that's when I realized something important. The die trap didn't just expose a thief. It exposed a bully hiding behind power. 2 days after the HOA meeting, I found a letter taped to my front door. No envelope. No stamp. Just a stack of printed pages held together with a paper clip, flapping slightly in the breeze. I didn't need to read it to know who it was from. Her name was typed in bold at the top, followed by the words "Notice of intent to pursue legal action." I almost laughed. Inside, the letter accused me of harassment, endangerment, emotional distress, and premeditated humiliation. She claimed the die trap was an illegal device designed to cause harm. She demanded a written apology, financial compensation, and a public statement clearing her name. If I failed to comply within 72 hours, she threatened to take all necessary legal steps. For a moment, doubt crept in. Not fear, just annoyance. Lawsuits are stressful, even when you know you're right. But instead of panicking, I did the smartest thing possible. I called a lawyer. After reviewing everything, the footage, the police report, the HOA meeting minutes, he leaned back in his chair and smiled. "This," he said, tapping the screen, "is one of the cleanest cases I've seen." He explained it plainly. The package was mine. The porch was mine. The device was non-lethal, legal, and clearly designed to deter theft, not injure someone. She had no legal right to touch the package in the first place. Every time she did, she committed theft. Repeatedly. On camera. Then he added something even better. Her letter? Admitting involvement. By threatening legal action, she unintentionally confirmed she was the one who triggered the die trap. That alone destroyed any remaining defense she might have had. My lawyer drafted a response that same afternoon. Calm. Professional. Devastating. It included copies of the video footage, timestamps, still images, police notes, and witness statements from neighbors who had seen her running home covered in blue. It concluded with a warning: any further harassment or false claims would result in a countersuit for defamation and damages. The letter went out by certified mail. 3 days passed. No response. A week later, the silence broke not with another threat, but with news. Multiple neighbors had filed police reports for missing packages. The pattern was identical. Same times. Same person. Same confidence. What I thought was just my problem had turned into a full investigation. And suddenly, the woman who once ruled the neighborhood with fines and warnings couldn't even show her face outside. But the final consequence wasn't legal. It was social. Because next came the neighborhood vote. The special neighborhood vote was scheduled for the following Saturday morning, and by then, the outcome felt inevitable. Still, people showed up early, gathering in small clusters outside the clubhouse, talking in hushed but intense voices. This wasn't just about stolen packages anymore. It was about trust, power, and years of resentment finally bubbling to the surface. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy. The board members sat stiffly at the front table, papers neatly stacked, expressions serious. Empty seats spoke volumes. She wasn't there. The former HOA president had chosen not to attend, claiming she felt unsafe around the community. That alone drew scoffs from the crowd. Unsafe? After years of policing everyone else, the vice president opened the meeting and went straight to the point. Today's vote is to determine permanent removal of the former president and to address misconduct within the HOA. Before the vote, residents were allowed to speak. One by one, people stood up. A young couple talked about baby supplies that never arrived. An older man described medication deliveries that mysteriously disappeared. A single mother explained how she'd been fined repeatedly for minor violations while packages meant for her kids vanished. The pattern was undeniable. The room filled with anger, not explosive, but controlled, focused, and long overdue. Then someone said what everyone had been thinking. She didn't just steal packages, a neighbor said. She stole from people she had power over. That sentence landed hard. When the vote was finally called, hands went up across the room. Unanimous. Permanent removal. Immediate resignation from any HOA position. A recommendation for further legal action if investigators requested cooperation. No applause followed. Just quiet relief. Outside, something shifted. Neighbors who barely nodded before now talked openly. People exchanged numbers. Shared stories. Even laughed a little. The fear that once kept everyone compliant was gone. The authority she'd built on intimidation collapsed completely. Later that afternoon, I saw her for the last time. She was loading boxes into her car, moving quickly, head down, avoiding eye contact. The blue stains were gone now, but the damage wasn't. People watched from their porches, not with anger, but with a strange mix of pity and validation. She felt it. You could tell. As she drove away, I realized something surprising. I didn't feel victorious. I felt closure. Justice didn't come from yelling or revenge. It came from patience, preparation, and letting the truth speak for itself. And while the story could have ended there, it didn't. Because a few days later, an unexpected knock came at my door. And it changed everything. The knock came just after sunset, sharp and deliberate. Not rushed. Not hesitant. I paused before opening the door, my mind running through possibilities. Neighbors had been stopping by all week, some to thank me, others to share stories they hadn't felt safe telling before. But something about this knock felt different. When I opened the door, two people stood there. One was a police detective I recognized from earlier in the week. The other was a woman in a plain blazer, holding a folder thick with papers. Both looked serious, but not hostile. The detective spoke first. We're following up on the package theft investigation. That word investigation still felt surreal. They explained that after the HOA meeting, the number of reports had doubled. Dozens of residents had come forward. Some had security footage. Others had delivery confirmations, timestamps, patterns that all pointed in the same direction. What started as a neighborhood issue had become something much bigger. The woman introduced herself as an insurance fraud investigator. That caught me off guard. She explained that several stolen packages contained high-value items that had been reported as lost or stolen through insurance claims. When those claims were cross-checked with neighborhood reports and delivery data, a pattern emerged. The same name. The same address. Over and over. The former HOA president. According to them, she hadn't just been stealing out of entitlement. She'd been reselling items online. Electronics. Home goods. Even medical equipment. The confidence I'd seen on camera wasn't arrogance, it was experience. They asked for permission to copy my footage again, this time for a larger case file. I agreed without hesitation. As they worked, the investigator told me something that made my stomach sink. She likely never thought she'd be caught, she said. People like this rely on fear and authority. It keeps everyone quiet. Before leaving, the detective thanked me. Not formally. Genuinely. He said my decision to document instead of confront had likely stopped months, maybe years of theft. That hit harder than I expected. After they left, I sat alone in the quiet house, replaying everything in my head. The missing packages. The die trap. The meeting. The vote. None of it felt real. What started as frustration had uncovered something deeply wrong hiding in plain sight. A few days later, the news spread quickly. Charges were filed. Multiple counts. Theft. Fraud. Abuse of position. Her name appeared in public records, stripped of the power she once wielded. The same woman who fined people for weeds now faced consequences far beyond embarrassment. But the biggest surprise wasn't what happened to her. It was what happened to the neighborhood. People talked. Looked out for each other. Packages were held for neighbors. Cameras went up not out of fear, but solidarity. Trust slowly returned. And that's when I realized the story wasn't about a die trap at all. It was about what happens when people stop letting bullies hide behind titles. Weeks later, the neighborhood felt different. Not quieter, just lighter. The tension that once hung in the air was gone, replaced by something unfamiliar but welcome: trust. People waved again. Kids rode bikes without being scolded. Packages sat on porches without vanishing. It was amazing how fast a community could heal once fear was removed. The former HOA president never returned. News eventually came through official channels. She had been formally charged on multiple counts related to theft and fraud. The evidence stack was overwhelming: camera footage, resale listings, delivery records, witness statements. Her attempt to intimidate her way out had only tightened the net around her. The die trap wasn't the crime. It was the spotlight. I was asked more than once if I felt guilty. I didn't. Because guilt belongs to people who do something wrong and know it. All I did was protect what was mine and let the truth surface on its own. I never shouted. Never confronted her. Never tried to embarrass her publicly. She did that herself the moment she decided to steal, again and again, assuming no one would challenge her. The HOA eventually elected a new board. Transparent. Quiet. Boring in the best way possible. Fines dropped. Rules were clarified. Power stopped being a weapon and became what it was always supposed to be: responsibility. One afternoon, a neighbor knocked on my door. Not with documents or questions, but with a small package. He smiled and said, "This was delivered to my place by mistake. Thought I'd bring it over right away." Inside was a simple thank you card. No name. Just a handwritten note that said, "You reminded us that standing up doesn't always mean shouting." That stayed with me. The internet loves dramatic endings: shouting matches, viral confrontations, instant karma. But real consequences are quieter. Slower. Stronger. They come from preparation, patience, and refusing to let intimidation win. If there's one thing I learned, it's this: people who abuse power depend on silence. The moment you replace silence with evidence, everything changes. I still order packages. I still check my porch. But I no longer feel watched. And every time a delivery notification pops up, I remember how close I came to letting it slide, how easy it would have been to say, "It's not worth the trouble." It was worth it. Not because of revenge. Not because of humiliation. But because one decision reminded an entire neighborhood that no one is above the rules. And that's the real ending of this story.